Welcome to Into the Heart, a podcast to support you in shining brighter each day. Brought to you by Helene Rose of BeBrilliantNetwork.com. Thank you for supporting the podcast with your ratings, reviews, and love offerings. Our theme for this month is self-love. Welcome, everyone. I'm so excited today to be here with a very special guest, Sue Patton Thoele. I'm going to read her bio to you. Sue Patton Thoele is an emeritus licensed psychotherapist, hospice chaplain, and author of 13 books, including The Mindful Woman, The Woman's Book of Courage, and The Woman's Book of Strength. Writing for Sue was a surprise endeavor, despite her qualms about not really having anything worthwhile or helpful to say. The muse took Sue by the scruff of the neck and compelled her to write her very first book, The Courage to Be Yourself. The universe then provided a kind, gentle, and brilliant editor who not only taught her how to write, but helped her uncover how much she loved to write. Sue is a wife, mother, stepmother, and grandmother. Her passion is to help women, herself included, transform fear in order to more readily love and believe in themselves. She is a lover of dolphins, dragons, dogs, and watercolor painting. Since the early days of Sue's psychotherapy practice, her motto has been, live gently with yourself and others. At this ripened stage of life, she has gotten pretty darn good at living her motto, and as a result is a happy and mostly peaceful little old lady in tennis shoes. She and her husbands live in Colorado. Welcome, Sue. Thank you so much for being here today.
Hi, Lena. It's fun.
I'm so grateful that you're here, and I'm so grateful to be friends with you, to have you in my life as an inspiration.
Yeah, the same is true for me.
So I'd love to hone in on a little bit on your mission here. You talked about, as I was reading your bio, you had mentioned your passion is to transform fear in order to more readily love and believe in themselves. How would you say that mission came to be in your life?
Well, like most writers, I write what I need to learn, and so I I was leading a group of women way back 40 years ago, maybe, and I realized that there was a spectrum of women. There were stay-at-home moms and people with no children and people with careers, and but that across the board, everybody seemed to have difficulty just being themselves and being
Mm.
happy with that and expressing that. And back in my day, of course, because I am, after all, a little old lady in tennis shoes, um, women were a little more pressured, I think, to be the helpmate of whomever, whether that was a mate or a child or a whatever. And I know that that's changed a great deal, but when I started writing, that was very true. And we all seemed to not be able to just be us. And
Mm-hmm.
and so I was just thinking about that, and I said in this group once upon a time, it seems as if we just don't have the courage to be ourselves. And
Mm.
there was a French teacher in the group, and she said, "That's a title." And and then and then the muse just got hold of me. I mean, I
Wow.
was writing on the yellow legal pads. I didn't even have a computer at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And and
Mm.
I was writing with a friend, my therapist friend with whom I led this group. And then it became very obvious that her passions were elsewhere and mine were with the book. And so we
Mm.
went our separate ways in that. But it really helped me because I don't know whether I would have ever had the guts to just start it myself. So, so yeah, so that's how it started. And we self-published that book, and took it down to the what was called the BEA, which was the Booksellers Association at that time. I still lived in California, and my God, we went into this humongous place. And I went, oh my God, what are we doing here? And just handed the book out to people. And that was in May. And in September, I got a phone call from one of the people for whom I had handed it to. And she said, I just picked this book out of the slush pile. And it's exactly what I needed. And she worked at the time with a distributing company. And so they began to distribute it. And then that particular gal, her name was Julie, went to work with a publisher and she took me with her. And the publisher was the editor I've talked about in my bio. She took my book and rearranged it, never losing any page or anything, but or idea, but just rearranged it in the way that made it flow. And she just then with the rest of the books that she worked with, she just basically taught me how to write. And
Wow.
yeah,
So it's
just with
almost
her.
like that, when the title was spoken, the
Mhm.
courage, uh,
To
the
be
courage
yourself.
to be yourself. It's almost like, I don't know, as you were talking about it, I could sense like this little magic sparkle dust around the title of the book. And, this light bulb
Mhm.
moment of like, oh yeah. And your friend in the group said, that's a book title. And you're like, okay, let's do it. And the editor just picks it out of the pile. It's like it was
Yeah.
meant to
Mhm.
be. It was meant
Mhm.
to be. And I love that idea of who, how do we muster up the courage to be vulnerable, to be authentic?
Well, if we're less fearful, we have the courage to be vulnerable because we know that we always have our own backs. If
Mm-hmm.
we if we are fearful enough, we can't really be our own champions
Mm-hmm.
because we're always looking outside of ourselves for either approval or affirmation or safety or whatever. So
Mm-hmm.
so the to me in my psychotherapy practice and everything, fear is the pretty much the major block
Mm-hmm.
in almost anything. In fact,
Mm-hmm.
I really think, Lena, that fear is basically at the core of most all of the illnesses that I mean not illnesses, ills that we feel and
Mm-hmm.
express and act out of.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
So I
yeah.
think what you're saying is the more strength, inner strength we have, the stronger we have that relationship with ourselves, the more we're able to extend some vulnerability and be okay if there isn't a response maybe that we're hoping for.
Well, absolutely. And it's like now, if I need to say something a little bit difficult to
Mm-hmm.
somebody, um, or I'm in a difficult situation, I know that I'm always going to take care of myself.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it doesn't mean that I won't feel like I wish they'd responded differently, or
Mm-hmm.
something like that. But I also know that I'm not going to betray myself. And when
Mm-hmm.
we're riddled with fear, um, it's so easy to think we're doing things wrong
Mm-hmm.
and we don't listen to what we really need or so forth.
Mm-hmm.
And I was taught too. I was born and raised in the Midwest, and I was raised in the 50s and the 40s actually. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so we were taught not to trust what we felt, and
Wow.
we were taught to always put somebody else first. And
Mm-hmm.
I got all confused about
Mm-hmm.
what was self-compassion and what was selfish.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I could figure out that self-compassion has literally nothing to do with selfishness,
Mm-hmm.
nothing. In fact, we're much more likely to be selfish if we don't have self-compassion.
Mm-hmm.
So the self-compassion part has just been, well, live gently with yourself and others, as my
Yes.
motto has been, 40 years or more.
Yes. And I
And
have that actually. I think you gave me a magnet
oh, I
with
did. Yeah.
quote. It's
Yeah.
on my whiteboard.
Good. Good. Yes, mine is on my refrigerator. Uh, yeah. So it's just a huge deal.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because with the foundation of really caring about and caring for and knowing ourselves and
Mm-hmm.
being willing to accept ourselves just the way we are, even though maybe like today, I just got my hair cut, and the gal, when I went up to pay, said, "How are you today?" And I said, "I'm kind of a bitch today, but and
You
she said,
have.
"Oh my God, I love that. I love that." And it's true. There's been some tough stuff going on, and I've got a little hangover from
And
it.
there's something too about being vulnerable allows other people to also show up as themselves,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So our mission here at the podcast is to step into the heart and to
Mhm.
shine bright, which I sense is just so aligned with your vision and your mission. When you hear the words shine bright, when we can choose to shine bright, what does that mean to you?
Hmm. Um, I think partially, I don't have a really good answer to that right off of the bat. Um, I guess honesty and integrity and enthusiasm and positivity all spring to mind with those things. Um,
And that
I
would
think
be
we
you.
all, hmm?
That would be you. You shine
Oh,
bright and you
thank you.
exude all
Well,
of those
maybe not
qualities.
today. So, but I think I always like to think of finding the light and
Mm,
and reflecting the light and be the light. So it really helps me to be around light people. And
mm,
my hair cutter is a light guy. I mean, he's my kid's age, and I just adore him. And
mm,
and he told me a really great story, a personal interest story of somebody being kind. That was shining bright. And he knew I was in a funky place, and so he said, "I'm going to tell you the story." So he was shining brightly, and
oh,
he and I both shared that we don't feel as we don't like it to feel icky as much as we like to feel light. And so, but I don't want to pretend.
mm,
I spent decades pretending, Lena,
mm,
and acting as if,
mhm.
and appeasing,
Yes.
and attempting to please in order to be accepted,
Mhm,
fearing rejection. And
mhm,
so acting in a way that I thought would alleviate that possibly. And
mhm,
I don't think anybody loves any of those things, period. But I can now say to myself, if she needs perking up or she
mhm,
needs to feel like she's a shiny light and somebody else is, dinging on her or something, I
mhm,
can say, well, they're just nuts. You're just wonderful.
mhm.
Let's go play. Or let's go find a rock that's a heart somewhere. It was funny because I take the doggy out in the morning to the piddle pen, what we call the piddle pen. And I was funky this morning, and I looked down and there is a rock. I was actually gonna bring it. That's a heart. And I was
Mm,
actually gonna bring it because I thought we were gonna be, on video, but it's out in the piddle pen on the fence. And it just makes me laugh because it happens a lot. And I just really feel one of the ways that I can shine brightly is to feel companioned, I guess. And finding those rocks or seeing like 1, 2, 3, 4 on the clock, um,
mhm.
if I feel companioned, because in my life I've had the blessing of seeing two or three of my guardian angels, uh,
Mm.
and then feeling others, and so I have this little what I call the crew, and and if I find a rock or something, I say thank you guys, because here you are, and I really
Oh,
need you. And my
yes.
prayer this morning was basically help me be nice,
Mm.
help me stay aligned,
Mm-hmm.
inner and outer. And because my inner is a little funky, make me be aligned with how I want to be rather than how I
Mm-hmm.
feel right now so much.
Mm-hmm.
And it just helps to feel companioned. I had that experience once that I was down at the Boulder Dinner Theater and it started snowing. By the
Mm-hmm.
time I left at intermission, there was eight, and this was just a year ago. Uh, there was 8 inches of snow on the top of my car and 8 inches of snow on all the roads. Nothing had been plowed yet. And uh, Pat Foss at church and Christy Coates at church were both there too. They left later than me, but interestingly, all three of us felt companioned on our way home. It was
Mm.
I went out to 36 and I
Mm.
followed the one track that I could find and just kept saying, I'm God's angels are with me. I am safe and secure. And I
Mm.
sang some affirmations and some
Mm-hmm.
songs that make me feel good. And I got home, I turned almost into my street, and the snow that was on the top of the car fell in front and covered my windshield. And I just said to myself, you have driven this block 1,000 times, you can make
Mhm.
it home. And I got stuck in my driveway. And there the car
Perfect.
stayed for 2 days. But
Perfect.
yeah,
I
but
love that word. I love that word companion. I had never heard that
yes.
word before, but
Yeah.
we're talking about, walking with spirit,
Yeah, absolutely.
walking
And of
with
course
spirit.
that's light
Hmm. Yes.
in all sorts of ways. It's light as in buoyant,
Mm.
and it's light as in spirit, to me.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love that you brought up your angels and your experience with
Hmm.
your angels as you refer to
Yeah.
them. That's so
Mhm.
beautiful, and it's like you're nurturing this connection.
Oh,
I think,
yeah, they're my buddies.
yeah.
Hmm.
I think that sometimes we don't know that we can nurture that connection and grow it. How do you think
Hmm.
you came to that realization?
I think I gave up my mind in a lot of ways and just came to the realization that if I was making this up, oh well, that didn't make any difference because it's really important to me, and it makes me feel better.
Mm-hmm.
And as I say, I saw three of them, but right, it doesn't make any difference if I'm right or not,
Mm-hmm.
because it helps me
It
be
helps you.
it helps me be and feel companioned.
Yes, and not alone in the world.
Yeah.
Yes. Well,
Yeah.
I 100% am with you on that, and I'm grateful every day for my spirit team, my
Yeah.
spirit family that's with me. And I think it would be great for more folks in the world to be open to the possibility. If
Yeah.
somebody's not even open to the possibility, they could take your perspective. Somebody could choose to take your perspective. I don't know if it's true or false. I don't know if it's right or wrong, but how does it make me feel?
Exactly. And that's when you're talking about coming from the heart. Anything that helps us feel safer, more secure, um, more supported is going to help our hearts open, because
Hmm.
fear is what causes them to clench.
Hmm.
Because I really believe that
Yeah.
we're naturally open-hearted.
Yes.
I really do.
Mm.
And that it's layered on fear that
Layered on fear. So if you had one tip for our listeners on releasing some of their fear, what would be your biggest tip on how to do that?
For me, it had to do with not feeling ashamed about having fear in the first place. We're human. We've
Mm,
all got it. We've all, I think well, it's been kind of shellacked on us. Um, I don't think every child comes in without fear because I think that there's other places we come from and so forth, other experiences we've had. But I think for me, I just had to realize that it's normal, natural, and absolutely can be transformed and transmuted.
mm-hmm,
And that happens more readily when I am gentle with myself, and it is much less likely to happen when I'm not.
mm-hmm. Beautiful. Beautiful. So it's this positive self-talk in a way. It's the reframing of your mind
Oh,
and
absolutely, that helps.
the
Totally.
the acknowledgement that, hey, I'm human. It's going to come up and it's
Mhm.
okay and I can let it go. I can let it move through me.
Yeah, and um, I also believe that well, I know that IFS, I guess they call it now, but when I was being trained, the different subpersonalities, it was called psychosynthesis, psychology synthesis. And I think the more we can just
Mm,
embrace the parts of us that are fearful, then
mm-hmm,
they don't have so much to fear. If we're going to say, "Get thee behind me,"
mm-hmm.
icky icky part, well, then they get all abandoned, and we just need to
Mm,
be companioned,
yes.
and
Yes.
companioning ourselves is major, huge,
Mm-hmm.
ginormous.
Loving. It's really that self-love, that loving all the parts of ourselves, even the ones that are scare us or
Mhm.
are.
Loving is the word that I have a little bit of trouble with. I probably would, it's just got so many possibilities. I think I
Mm-hmm.
probably would start with accepting.
Mm, mm-hmm.
um, yeah, and
Accepting,
acknowledging
accepting it all,
and
acknowledging it.
acknowledging.
Mhm.
Well,
Not
yeah.
ignoring it, not pushing it under the
Mhm.
rug, not sweeping it behind and underneath.
Awareness is really that's the major first stepping stone, I think,
Mm-hmm.
when with acceptance and gentleness, we can be aware of what's really going on with us.
Mm-hmm.
Then we don't just act.
Mm-hmm.
Because an awful lot of times when we just act or react, we get ourselves in trouble. But
Mm-hmm.
if we're aware of what's going on, and we can more choose our our actions and reactions.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Beautiful. So I have your new book here with me. I love the title. It's so beautiful, Sue. How to Stay Upbeat in a Beat Down World.
Yeah.
I think this book is so perfectly timed with what folks are needing right now. How did this book come to be?
This is a rewrite of an older book that was
Hmm.
called Growing Hope, and that was written after 9/11. The Growing Hope was. And and the title didn't seem to work well. And so after, well, in the last years when we've had, so much stuff going on, um, I was just talking to my publisher, and she said that book just didn't get out as much as it should. And I said, yeah, I really liked that book. And she said, what would you be willing to redo it and bring it out? And I said, oh, I sure would, because I think we need to learn how to stay upbeat, especially with it in a beat down world. And she said, there's your title.
Your titles just float on the wings of angels, don't they?
Well, I write from a title. I
Mm-hmm.
always I always have, like that first one I told you about. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I just opened to the page practicing gracious acceptance,
Mm,
which is really aligned with what we've been talking about
mhm,
today.
mhm, mhm.
Hmm. The most important place to practice gracious acceptance is with ourselves. That's on page 161. That's perfect. I love it. Gosh, Sue, what a beautiful conversation. I so appreciate your time and your energy and your insights. You truly are a wise woman leading the way for us women in the world who want to make a difference and show up for ourselves and for each other. So thank you for paving the way with your beautiful words and
Thank you.
offering.
I think women are magnificent.
Mm,
I in my therapy practice and in my personal life, I have just found women to be absolutely awesome.
I would wholeheartedly agree with you on that. And men too. I love men.
I agree, and most of my books are toward women,
Yes, they are.
are written toward women. Um, I think that women have been allowed to progress emotionally and authentically more readily than men have. I think we're still
Hmm.
seeing so much constriction on men,
Hmm.
and I think because women get together and really share with each other, I think we have been allowed and we have
Mm.
needed at the depths of our souls to be able to be authentic and share that. And I think men still have a way to go. I mean, they're of course wonderful. I mean, they're
Hmm.
wonderful, but I don't believe they've culturally. I was just talking to my hairdresser, and he said his brother-in-law was an Argentinian, and that he was very open.
Hmm.
And so I think there are cultures in which that's more okay, but
Hmm.
in our culture, in my age group, of course, that was
Hmm.
verboten big time.
Hmm.
Guys, I mean, they just had to be strong all the time
Right,
and take charge and
right,
all that stuff.
right.
And
Well, hopefully we lift each other, knowing that we're all connected. We have an opportunity to really walk each other home, as Ram Dass says.
I know, I know, I love his sayings. Yeah.
Mhm. Do you have any last insights that you'd like to share? Is there anything you hoped I would ask you about before we
No,
close?
I just trusted it would be fun and
Oh,
fine.
thank you. Thank
Yeah,
you. Gosh, I feel like we could go another, 45 minutes.
we probably could.
We
Maybe we
could.
will next time.
We'll have to schedule a part two for sure.
Yeah.
We've
Okay.
covered so many beautiful topics. It's been such a pleasure to hear about your journey into discovering yourself as a writer, helping other women discover themselves through your writings and your teachings that you share in your books. It's so beautiful. And I'm so grateful that you shared the story of your angels. And it's so funny. I didn't say this at the time because I didn't want to interrupt you, but we're on video here,
Mhm.
and in the background I could see some like flashes,
Ooh.
pink. I'll have to maybe share the video with you later on.
Okay.
You could
Okay,
see,
great.
but it was like a little synchronicity of like, hey, yeah, we're here. Thanks for, telling the world that, we're here for them too.
That's interesting, Lena, because you probably do this too, but I notice that when I remember to acknowledge my cohorts and my helpers and my muses before I sit down to write, the writing goes a lot better than when I forget.
Mm-hmm.
So I just think that I really so strongly believe that we have so much more help than we help and companionship
Yes,
and atta girls and cheerleaders and
yes,
playmates than
yes.
than we know about.
I love that, Playmates.
Yeah.
Sue,
Mhm.
you are such a blessing in the world.
Oh, Thank
in
you.
my life.
As
You
are
are
you.
such a bright light.
If you enjoyed this
Thank you, thank you,
podcast,
thank you for being here
consider
today.
Thank you.
providing
It was
a
fun.
rating, a review, or love offering. Deep gratitude for your If you enjoyed this podcast, consider providing a rating, a review, or love offering. Deep gratitude for your presence here.